Hey guys, we're all back. Everybody is assembled in this living room. All dogs, Sam, boys, me, and a Gerber tactical Hinderer rescue knife. So we're going to be taking a look at this. I'm going to do a little series, not necessarily all in a row, about some rescue knives and rescue tools leading up to sort of a comparison test video. And this is, again, a requested kind of video from a couple viewers. I think there's 3 specific people that asked me to talk about some rescue knives and rescue equipment. And, you know, with my background, that's near and dear to my heart. So I figured, why not? So we're going to look at some stuff on the low end, some mid-range, some higher, more expensive stuff, and then we're going to, once we look at all those videos, we're going to put stuff together, and we're going to see, is there really a difference? Just to give you a heads up, the 3 knives we're going to put in this little test and look at are going to be on the lower end, the Kershaw Barricade, in the mid-range, the Gerber Hinderer rescue knife, and then on the kind of upper level, we're going to look at the Benchmade Triage. I've already got a video or 2 where I kind of briefly show the Benchmade Triage. So in the meantime, till I get to that specific video, I'll put a little link up here. I'll also, in the video description, I'll put links to those videos. You can take a look at those in the meantime if you want. Let's get into our shout out list for this video. There's a young lady named Katie Marshall, and I believe she's from the UK, and forgive me, I watched one of her videos and the accent tells me that. When I say a young lady, she's young and she would like to start up her own YouTube channel, and she specifically asked me if I would give her a little hand. And so Katie Marshall has 1 video up right now, but it's, you know, she's trying. So you can check out her channel. And I'll actually, from now on, I think I'll put the shout out names in the video description as well. Also giving shout outs today to Dutch the Brindle Boxer, which is a really cool name. Mike Loessle, Supremechimp, also another great name. Robert Shadbolt, and Unknown123. Now I know Unknown123 also has a channel. However, I went to search for it, and there's, like, you know, depending on whether the U is capitalized or not, it gets a little confusing. But again, I'll put names in the description. So thank you all for supporting the channel, for watching videos. Happy to give you guys shout outs and say hey. By the way, you probably hear a little bit of Doctor Who in the background. All right, and so now real quick, the Douche Canoe Award, before you break this package open, goes to somebody who, doucheness is one thing, but doucheness and then lying about more doucheness is something else entirely. So there was a guy, and his username is Corey Gibbons. His little picture is a photo of Gary Busey. He decided to make a comment on the Battle Box Mission 28 June 2017 unboxing, where he made a veiled joke about domestic violence, which, you know what, listen, you guys know, as, you know, someone working in the ER and ambulance, stuff like that, it's not funny. It's just one of those things that's just not funny, ever. So I called him out on it, and this guy then just, well, you know what, go read the interaction. It's hilarious. He then decided to switch it up, and by the way, his comments were ridiculous. Then he decided to say, well, he's a psychologist, and he knows my personality, and he's analyzed me. And he just started naming random observations from the video, which were wrong, by the way. I mean, like, just read it's awesome. And then the guy ends the whole thing with, you know, like a go fuck yourself and all this. Like, yeah, real professional psychologist. I was raised, and, you know, this is not me bragging, but bragging a little bit. I was raised by 2 PhDs in mental health, all right? Like, seriously, guys, like my dad, I told you, former special forces, all that. While he was doing his military career, he put himself through school, ended up getting a PhD in clinical psychology, and my mom she was a nurse and then got a PhD in mental health nursing. I showed my dad this guy's comments, and he said, this guy's either the worst psychologist in the world and completely crappy at what he does, or just flat out lying. So the Douche Canoe Award goes to Corey Gibbons, and I hope you guys will all go read the interaction, because it is hilarious. I mean, basically, this guy's idiot comments were like, it's like one of those, a guy who claims to be psychic, but really he's just doing like observational cold reading or something. This guy was doing a cold reading and pretending to be a mental health professional or a psychologist, evaluating my personality. It's like, dude, you're an idiot. You said something stupid. Man up. Say, yeah, sorry, that was stupid. And don't start throwing around lies and stuff, especially about a profession where, like, it's dedicated to helping people. And especially not stupidly like that. Like, if you're going to do a cold reading or, like, play these games, get it right. All the administrative business out of the way, let's talk about the Gerber Hinderer collaboration rescue knife. So I've said on this channel a bunch of times, I love Hinderer knives. All right, the Hinderer XM18 is one of the best. Like, if you want a knife, and yes, it is expensive, it is. But in my opinion, if you want a knife that is never going to fail you, that is going to last forever, and is going to go through hell and back, and you want it from a USA-made company that has some of the best customer service in the world, you can't beat an original Hinderer. So when I post my complete collection video, you'll see I have a number of XM18s, XM24s. These knives are built like tanks. They're awesome, but they are super expensive. So Hinderer has collaborated with a few different companies. I know that Hinderer has done a lot of collaboration with Kershaw to make produce more affordable, and of course the materials are different. All right, you're not getting the same production quality, but you're getting the Hinderer designs and a lot of the Hinderer features. So Kershaw has some great Hinderer collaborations, and Gerber has a couple. I actually, when I got my very first XM18, which is this one, it just looks a little different because I have the custom scale on it and everything. I did an unboxing video comparing that to a Gerber Combat Lifesaver knife, which is very similar to this, but a little bit different. So I'll put a link to that video in the video description as well, so you can see it. There's just something about the Gerber design and like the family line that makes them great knives. The background of Rick Hinderer, you know, if you're not kind of educated in the world of Rick Hinderer, he was an actual firefighter in, I think, California. I'm not sure. But his knife making grew out of a hobby, and he would make specific rescue type knives and different knives for guys in the fire department and everything. So he really knows, he has a lot of experience when you're going to talk about a rescue knife, what kind of features you need. So we're going to kind of crack right into this using a Kershaw link for the opening. You're going to see a whole video on this soon. Inside the reverse of the package, we've got a pouch, we've got a set of bits, a little wrench that connects right here to the bit adapter. So might as well take this out of the plastic too. So you can use this and then put the bits in there and do whatever you need to do. So it doesn't connect to the knife itself, but it's just as a rescue knife, it's good to have. So the knife itself is very similar in size and shape to the XM18, but with some key design differences for rescue knife purposes. I saw the listing on this on Amazon, and I started reading some of the comments, and you guys know how just stupidity or like lack of attention to detail or not doing your homework before commenting on stuff pisses me off. There was a guy who commented that this knife was a ripoff, he got it for his son, and the company was too cheap to bother sharpening the tip, and it's worthless, and da-da-da. Like, dude, do you even know what a rescue knife is? There are design features of a rescue knife that make it different from a regular knife. So we're going to talk about that, because this is definitely not the kind of thing you want to carry just for EDC use. So you've got your primary blade, of course, all serrated. Now that's not my first choice, but in this case, when you just want brute cutting strength to get through stuff, that's not bad. The reason that you've got a blunt tip, though, is think about the situations you would be using a knife like this. Cutting clothes off somebody to be rescued, or trying to cut somebody out from a seatbelt, or you don't want a sharp knife that you can accidentally stab your patient with. Especially, you know, if you're going to be using like in a moving ambulance, or, you know, in a scene where a car might not be stable. So there's nothing wrong with this design. This is exactly what it's supposed to be, folks. So that's why I'm saying this is maybe not the exact knife you would get just for EDC purposes. So kind of know the features. It's got extra large thumb studs to make it easy to use when you're wearing, you know, heavy gloves, like you might if you're going into a broken car that has jagged metal and glass and everything. It's got a seatbelt cutter, a line cutter. Again, this is Rick Hinderer designed specifically for seatbelt and clothes slicing, separate from your primary blade. And you see that on a lot of rescue knives where you have that secondary option. You'll see some, and you'll see this on the Kershaw, where that cutter is always exposed and always out there. I personally like one where you can close it and open it at will, so you don't need to open the whole knife to get your line cutter out. But it's also not, I've seen, and yeah, stupid things happen. Either it's a stupid mistake or it just so happens. I've seen people cut their pockets open by accident. I've seen them get snagged on things. It happens. So it's nice to be able to close it and put it away. And it also protects that blade for you too, when you don't want it just out to the world. You've got a very separate lanyard hole, you know, outside of the handle itself to make sure that nothing interferes with holding onto that handle. And then it's got a little carbide glass breaker tip over there to puncture a window or anything else you need to. On the other side, you've got an oxygen bottle wrench. Again, if you're not in the business of rescuing stuff, you probably don't need this to turn bottles of oxygen on and off, but it's here on the knife for those who might need it. Extra large clip, extra secure, so no matter what kind of gear you're clipping this onto, whether it's turnout gear, whether it's a utility belt, a gun belt, some kind of load carrying equipment, it's bigger and stronger than a standard clip to make sure that it can really get traction and hold on to whatever you need to hold on to. And I normally bitch about knives that don't give you the option to change the clip from tip up to tip down, right? You guys know that. These are specifically made for tip down carry because, and I'm not saying I agree with this, I'm just saying this is the justification that a lot of people use. If you're going to have a knife like this and it's going to be clipped onto an equipment belt or something like that, there's less of a chance of the blade getting caught on something and accidentally opening up with tip down than tip up carry. I'm not saying I buy into it. I'm saying that's a justification I've heard before, but it is what it is. Personally, I like tip up because if it's hanging on your belt, you grab it, your hand's in the natural position to open it up. It's a liner lock design, but it's actually got a nice little switch to close it. And I'll tell you what, the CLS I had, the Hinderer Combat Lifesaver, was a lot tougher to close than this one. It was not as smooth action at all. It's not a great one-handed knife for closing purposes, but one-handed opening is pretty good. Pretty small liner there, very thin metal. Not a fan of that, but you can see that in terms of lockup and how it comes, you've got a lot of life in this lock. It's very early lockup, and it does hold the blade very, very secure. Because the blade is blunt, by the way, you can also use this to pry. You can use it as a screwdriver. You're not worried about breaking a tip off of your knife. So there's actually a lot of advantages to this design in this particular situation. And I'm going to say it again, in case somebody missed it the first time. This is a specific rescue built knife. This is not an EDC knife. This is not a camping knife. It's not the kind of thing that you would carry. Now, you could if you're willing to accept the difference in features. For example, you don't have a tip. For example, the forward edge is not sharpened. But if this is the kind of knife that you want to carry, there's nothing keeping you from carrying it in all sorts of situations. You've got G10 scales on both sides, and of course it's, rescue knives usually come in, usually, not always, some kind of distinguishing color. You'd be amazed, or maybe you wouldn't, just like if you've ever seen some of those expose videos where somebody goes into a gun store and they have like one gun that's in wood stock and one that's in plastic, and people freak out and say that the one in plastic is an assault rifle, but the one with the woodstock is a hunting rifle. But guess what? It's the same Ruger 1022 either way. It's just a difference in stock. I found that people, when I'm out in the world, back when I was on the ambulance or whatever, would react to a red or orange colored knife being pulled out very differently than a black or green colored knife. All of a sudden, the black or green handled knife is some kind of tactical weapon, but orange or red is a rescue tool. It's just one of those things that people associate in their head. So there's a good reason why this is red. The Combat Lifesaver one is black. I don't know why it came in black G10. So you do have the clip, right? So you can put that right on your gear, but then you also have the pouch. I'm always a fan of giving people the option of how they want to carry stuff. So you've got the standard vertical belt loop that you could use. You've got horizontal carry option. The only issue is there's kind of, I guess you could fold this under. Let's see, can we? Yeah, all right. So you can fold it under there kind of Molly style. It's a little tight. I'm not sure how much belt you can get under there now, but you have the option to carry this in a horizontal way as well if you want. These snaps, by the way, are very secure. And really good quality stitching and everything else throughout the pouch. And, I should also mention, I'm on record in a lot of videos and comments saying, I think Gerber is a brand that kind of overcharges for what you get, but I have to say that so far what I see in this knife and what I saw in the Gerber CLS, materials still, I would like to see it made out of stronger stuff, better stuff, but it is built so well and serves its function so well, I really think it's worth the price. So the pouch gives room for the knife and the bit kit. Your knife, your bits, and your wrench all fit in, Velcro and snap closure. One of the key decision-making factors for me, whether I would use this with the clip or the pouch, is did I want to carry these bits around? Comes with some basic instructions to let you know how to use the features, and that's valid, I guess. I would assume that somebody that was going to buy this knife for professional purposes would know, but on the flip side, you might be a new dude right out of fire school or EMT school, and that helps you out there. Kind of gives you just a little walkthrough I recently had kind of a back and forth in the comments with somebody, not implying bad, but I had used instructions once to kind of test the knife edge and everything and cut it. And I always keep boxes, but it never occurred to me to keep instructions. And I was like, wow, good point, man, good point. So I'm going to safely put these away just so they are with the knife, you know. So first, let's take a look at this cutter. You know what? We've got a rescue knife with a nice red handle. We'll use some bright orange 550 cord to test it out. And that's pretty easy. Not the cleanest cut, but it doesn't need to be. A little bit of effort, not much. One more. So, nice edge right out of the factory on the line cutter. Got an old boys t-shirt. Boys wear out these clothes pretty fast and get them dirty and disgusting. Yeah, so very, very effective at what it's made for right there. Taking a look at the primary blade. This thing is, wow. I mean, the serrations are effective. It is a razor sharp blade. Obviously, I'm not going to shave my arm with this one, but it just goes right through that stuff too. And if you take a look at the dirty old shirt, I mean, it just, no worries. It will cut right through that, even without holding it tight. It's not pretty, it's not clean, but it'll shred right through that stuff. I didn't look at this before, but centering's good. Slight, I mean the slightest, if I'm going to be nitpicky, and you guys know I am, it's tiny bit off, but, you know, whatever. The quality on this knife is good enough that I'm not really worried about that in terms of, you know, for what it's used for anyway. This is a knife that's not going to look pretty, and it's not going to be a collection queen. If you're going to have this knife and you're going to carry it and you're going to use it for what it's intended, this knife is going to get pretty scuffed and beaten up just as it is. And this is the kind of knife that wears that use as a badge of honor. As a matter of fact, walking around, you know, just from my personal days, if you had a knife like this and you took it out one day and it was all shiny and pretty and new, it would just be assumed that you don't actually do anything for a living. You know, like you're the kind of guy that sits back at a firehouse or sits in an ambulance and it doesn't actually do anything. You're the radio guy. Now, if I was going to have any criticism at all, any issues, I would say that my hand fits perfectly in this as is. But if I was wearing some big gloves, turnout gloves, if I was wearing any kind of work glove, this might feel a little uncomfortable. It might be a little small with those big fat work glove fingers on. You know, I'm not sure how many people specifically a knife like this will appeal to watching the channel or YouTube in general. I'd love to hear actually how many people that watch the channel just for general knife purposes versus how many people would actually have a use for a knife like this, you know, kind of your opinions there too. But we'll call that good for this one. Again, links down in the video description. That is it. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching, and we will be back in real soon.